Hello. Um, Today we're going to be painting this caladium leaf in Procreate. If you want to follow along with my file, just join my newsletter. There's a link in the description, and you'll get a welcome email. And there you can go and check all the Happy Designers Backpack resources, and you'll be taken to this website. And then here you will find all the assets that you need for today. So just press download it now and you'll find all the files here, the swatches, the Procreate file, the texture brush, and the reference image. So what you have to do for Procreate is just tap here. Yes, of course, it's not working right now, but let's go back and press download it now. And if you tap here, you can save to device and then you'll find Procreate here. And if you don't have it there, just press here and choose Procreate and it will import directly to Procreate. Same with the swatches and with the brushes. So I'm using Sandra's watercolor brushes. They are there in the backpack also. So if you haven't installed them, just go ahead and install them. I have them here. And I have created a new brush called Texture, and that one is in the pack also, so we'll be using it for this leaf. If you've never seen my classes, hi, I'm Sandra Mejia. I'm an illustrator, I'm a surface pattern designer, and I create classes where I teach you how to do everything like I do. I create art for brands to license for their products, so I want to teach you how to do that also. And I work mainly in Procreate and watercolor. So I decided to create my own watercolor brushes to work in Procreate and make it look like watercolors. So I call this technique the easy Procreate watercolors. And this is a very easy technique that I developed and I wanted to share it with you. If you want to learn how I do everything from the base file, add the texture to the canvas, export with transparent backgrounds, everything, I have the Easy Procreate Watercolor Bundle. It's on sale now. The link is in the description. So make sure you grab it before December 1st so you can grab the sale. And let's start. So these files have a texture and they have some text, which is this. And then we have the sketch and the base layer. We're going to paint everything here. And if you tap here on the end, you can make the sketch lighter or darker, whatever is easier for you to paint. So I'm going to make it very light. And on this layer, I'm going to grab my Ultimate Fill Rough brush. I love this brush. I use it for everything. And I'm going to go to my colors and I am going to select the color palette, which is called Hibiscus because it's the one that I use for my hibiscus class also. And I'm going to tap on the three dots and set as active. So now I'm going to make my brush very big and I am going to grab my palettes and bring them here so I have easy access to the colors. So I start the same way that I start with my watercolors, and I'm going to start from light to dark and make that brush even bigger. And I'm just going to fill in my leaf to give it like a base color. I don't like doing like botanical illustration where it's exactly like the reference, but if you do like that, just follow the reference more closely. If you want to see your reference, you can go here. And if you downloaded it already to your iPad, you can go to Canvas And then here in reference, I can go to image, import image, and select that. And now I have my reference image here, so I can be guided when I paint, but I'm going to follow it very loosely. If you have any questions or anything, just post them in the chat. It's just me, so bear with me while I paint and answer questions in the chat. So first of all, I'm going to start creating a very light shadow areas here. So you'll see that I'm grabbing my brush, well, my pencil like this. It's so you can see that I'm applying very little pressure. If I go hard on my brush, I create these very harsh lines. So if that's what you want, that is great. See, with these brushes, you paint lightly. They're kind of faded. And then when you press hard, you'll see that it creates these like dry areas, like with real watercolors where the water dried. So just vary your pressure to vary the effect of the watercolor. So in my leaf, everything's dark in the edges, so I'm going around very loosely again. And then I'm going to lift my pencil. If I go in again, I'll start creating darker areas because these brush layers. And then I'm going to create some darker areas like here in the middle. Maybe here. Maybe this part is darker. And again, I don't follow reference too much. So I just have it here like as a guide, very loose guide. Maybe a bit here. Okay, so I'm going to start going to my darker colors to create these darker areas. So I was working with this one. I can go to this one. And just going around again. I can create some of these leaves, like the veins here, by making my brush a bit smaller. And I think I'm going to go back to this lighter color and like create some of those veins. And you'll see that I pressed harder here and lighter here. So it starts to look like it's fading. And then I'm going to do that for like the biggest veins, which are the ones that I marked in the sketch. You'll see that I didn't mark all of them in the sketch. This is just like a guide for the biggest ones. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding even darker green here. Make my brush a bit bigger. And you'll see that I'm pressing hard and then softer and then hard again, just to make the lines and the edges be like a bit different. See here, it overlapped, so it created like a darker area. If you don't like that, there's a water blend brush that you can use, and don't use it like this because it blurs everything and it destroys the watercolor effect. So just kind of like, if it's too big, make it a bit smaller and just kind of tap on it. And that way you can keep the watercolor effect. Same here. Great, so I'm going to go to my Ultimate Fill Rough again and just create some darker areas. Going live is so funny because for some reason, like I record a lot of classes constantly and I am never nervous when it's not live. But when it's live, it's hard. If you've ever done it, you'll know. Okay, I'm making darker areas, and experiment with the different brushes. There's this super cool watercolor brush that creates this like different textures, and that one's also really cool. So you could use that one also if you want to create even more like texture areas like that. But I'm going to use it to create some of the leaves. Sorry, veins, leaves, creating one leaf. So I can go and like color in like this in some areas. But it's not creating like, it's not looking as dark as I want it to. So I'm just going to go back to the Ultimate Fill Rough. And let's see if this size works. That's too big. I'm going to make it a bit smaller, and I'm just going to go around like these, not thinking too much, creating some texture. So you'll see that I'm just like painting like some areas like these, and that's just like a style preference. You'll see that here it's different, but I just want to create the illusion of texture all around the leaf. So I'm going to do that very fast. Try not to make it too round like that, because then it looks too fake. But just go around. And you can add as much texture and details as you want. This depends on your style. Okay, I'm going to make my lines a bit smaller. And I'm going to go to a lighter green. Maybe make it a bit bigger. And then create even more texture. All these parts here. And this layering of colors and everything, it's going to create like a more realistic watercolor effect and add more depth and interest to your illustration. I am not in the US, I'm in Colombia right now, and I did not realize that I planned this live, especially on Thanksgiving. So, really bad day for live painting. But let me know if you watch this afterwards or if you're watching right now. If you like painting live and just talking about whatever art related and answering your questions, because this is something I really enjoy. Like, I'm always painting, so if you like watching me paint live, this is something I could do more of, definitely. Okay, so now I am going to use that new brush I created just for this, which is a texture brush. And you can play with the sizes. If you tap, you'll see that it creates some random splatters. You can make it a bit smaller if you don't like it to be so big. And then you can go around and add texture much quicker like this. So I'm adding more in some areas so it's more like darker, more evident, and then less in some others. And oh, that's too big. So if you press once and it's too big and you don't like that, just like undo and either make it smaller or press again. See, for this area, it's too big, so I'm going to make it smaller for this area. And here, and then what you can do also is change the color you're using. So here I'm going to use a very dark green. Of course, my dog is gonna start barking the whole time I'm live. Okay, so I'm going around like, I love having fun while I'm painting, so I'm not super like worried about following these. Lizzie, see if she comes. Okay, so I'm going to go here and with the soft wash, I'll show you what that one does, see if you like it. But if I make it big, I can create darker areas like these. So that's great to create a variation in the tone also. But I didn't like it with that dark green, so I'm going to use this brighter green and maybe add some darker areas here and a bit here. And as you go on, it starts layering, but it also starts kind of muting the details. So don't do it too much unless you want the detail to be a bit muted. Okay, maybe a bit here in the middle. And now I'm going to go to the Ultimate Fill Rough again. And here I'm going to show you for the veins. I'm going to choose a darker green, maybe this one. And see how this one looks. There's also the detail brush, very good for details. And it looks a bit different. It doesn't create those harsh edges. You can choose whichever you like best. I'm going to use the Ultimate Fill Rough. And I'm just going to create some more of these veins. Make it a bit thinner. And if you can't see your sketch, you can just go to the sketch, tap the N, and make the opacity a bit darker. And that way, maybe it's easier for you to follow the sketch. And when you're following a sketch, don't go like really slowly, trying to be like perfectly on the line, because that creates very contrived lines. Just follow the sketch as a guide and then just loosely deviate from it. And that way, your illustrations are going to have way more life. You'll see. So I'm just going over these veins. And you can create others that are not on the sketch. Just try to go light here. Don't make too many here, because if you see on the reference, they're very light over there and then they start getting darker here. So I'm just creating some of these ones. We'll go very fast. I find that this way of painting watercolors is very relaxing, because once you have the base shapes, you're not worried about brushes going out or anything. You're just kind of playing around. So now I'm going to grab an even darker green, and from this side, I'm going to start making some darker veins. And you can start from the border or you can start from here. It doesn't matter, because we're going to add some white dots here, so they won't be very obvious. Okay, and then there's some areas here that are super dark, like you can just draw them on, like here. And if you go back on your brush, see, if you go back on the brush, it will create darker areas because it overlays. So I like adding some dark spots just to create some interesting textures on my leaf. And maybe they're not there, but I'm the artist, so I can add whatever I want. Okay. Maybe here it has like a spot. And then what I'm going to do is in another layer, I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to tap on it and create a clipping mask. This way, whatever I paint here, let me show you, only stays in the shape underneath it, which is the leaf. So I don't have to be worried about going outside the lines again. And I can just choose a lighter color, this little beige, and that's too big. And I can create some of these white veins. And I'm going to turn off my sketch so I don't see it anymore because it's confusing. If you want your veins to be more like brighter, you can tap here and you can play with these blending modes. I'm going to choose add and you see, let's see. Okay, great. Of course, it doesn't want to zoom in my Procreate. That's never happened before. But anyway, this is with those lines in add, and this is with those lines in normal. You'll see that with add, they're way more visible. So there we go. I'm going to add some white in some areas, not everywhere. And maybe I want to make it a tiny bit bigger. And adding lighter and darker lines and shades and shapes to your illustrations gives them way more interest. So you'll see that I'm not like going over each line, like each vein, only some of them. And then I'm pressing softly at the end. And here, maybe we can make a little line. And I'm going to make my brush bigger and even bigger. And I can create some light areas here to create sort of this texture. So I'm just going to tap and kind of pull sometimes to create like lines and dots. See? Like tap and then lines and dots. And you can make them as close as you want to create more texture. Or you can just add some like that, like random ones. Just try everything. If you don't know what your like style is, I don't think like style is something that should be like forcing you to do something in some way. It's just your taste basically. So maybe you do these like I'm doing it and you're like, oh, that's so ugly. So now you know you don't like that. And then you try doing like little lines like that and you're like, oh, I love that. So that's how you find your style, just playing and experimenting and not worrying too much about it. Oh, hi, ChiaPet68. There is a replay. Actually, the live is recorded on YouTube, so you can watch it as any other YouTube video later. So don't worry if you can't catch it all. This way, also, if you haven't downloaded all the resources and I'm going too fast, because I am going too fast, um, you can just pause it afterwards and rewatch it and follow along. And if you do follow it and you want to share it with me, you can share it on Instagram and tag me. I'm at Art by Sandra Mejia, and I would love to see what you make. Okay, so I like these white lines and dots. I'm just going to like bring them out in some areas so it's not like a perfect border. Nature is so perfect, but it's rarely super like symmetric. So when you create these different variations and like defects, which are not defects, it makes the illustration more lively also. Okay, I'm just going to add some dots here just because there's a lot of texture here that I didn't draw. So this will just indicate that there's something happening there. So this area doesn't look so flat because this area is heavily textured. So I can do these, or if you want to go even more textured, you can go to the texture brush and see, that's like super evident texture. You can also reduce the opacity here and then make it like more subtle. Or too much there. Or the cool thing, and the reason I did it in a different layer, is because now I can play with this layer. I can turn it off. If I don't like it, I can erase it and start again. Or I can tap on the A and I can reduce the opacity and make it more subtle. And you can also play with other ones here and they will create different effects. So make sure you do that. And I'm going to tap here and close this because I'm done. And now you'll see the paper texture. It's, you can go here and you can duplicate this layer and it will create an even darker texture. But it also darkens your illustration. So you're going to have to see what you prefer. I'm going to delete that. Nope, can't because it's locked. So I'm going to swipe to the left and unlock it, and then I can delete it. And then if you want, you can change your background color. I don't like super white backgrounds because I don't know, I like more toned backgrounds. So I'm just going to add a bit of yellow here, like cream, and that's it. Well, I hope you like this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you follow along and show me what you create. And again, I am running a sale on my Easy Procreate watercolor bundle. It's 6 of my classes, and you get a hibiscus flower bonus class. So you get 7 classes. Right now, it's $99. So go grab it. The link is in the description. And please let me know if you enjoy me creating lives like this, and I can create more. See you soon. Bye.